The new OnePlus 9 Pro with the partnership with Hasselblad promises to take the camera a step up from the OnePlus 8 Pro. Well, I happen to have both, so I took them on a photo walk and I'm going to show you side by side some of those shots next.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by Casper. It's time to break up with your old bed and move on to better sleep. Upgrade today by going to casper.com/twit1 and use code TWIT1 for $100 off select mattresses. Hello and welcome to Hands on Tech. I'm Jason Howell. So OnePlus has done it again. They've come out with their next line of premium flagship devices, the OnePlus 9 and OnePlus 9 Pro. And if you look really close at the 9 and 9 Pro, you'll see on the little camera bump the word Hasselblad, a famous, very well-known camera company that OnePlus is really looking toward to improve their camera game. You may remember last year, the OnePlus 8 Pro, which I actually liked a lot. They're always looking to improve their camera. It's like the final frontier for OnePlus devices. And the OnePlus 8 Pro took their camera game to the next level. It wasn't quite there to compete with the top-of-the-line premium flagships with the best cameras like Pixels and Samsung Galaxy S and Note devices, but it was getting better. And so now with the Hasselblad partnership, OnePlus hopes to take that even further. And I thought, okay, well, how much of a step up is it from the 8 Pro to the 9 Pro? Is there a noticeable difference? Well, that's what I'm going to get into today. But first, let's take a look at what makes the OnePlus 9 Pro so special in the camera department. The camera system really is a beauty to look at. No question. That bump, the camera bump, has a nice classic camera look to it that I just love. It's very eye-catching to me. Now up at the very top is a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera. It's a Sony IMX766 sensor, has a focal length of 14 millimeters and an f2.2 aperture. Below that, a 48 megapixel Sony IMX789 sensor. This is the main camera, probably the lens you're going to use most often when you just pull out the camera and shoot. Has an f1.8 aperture, also optical image stabilization, and a wide focal length of 23 millimeters. And below that, a 2 megapixel monochrome camera, and to the side of that, an 8 megapixel 3x optical zoom lens with optical image stabilization. Swapping it around on front is a single 16 megapixel selfie camera. Okay, so those are the specs, but how do they perform? Well, so what I've done here is I've taken the same picture. I went on a photo walk and took the same picture on the 8 Pro as well as the 9 Pro using all the different lenses and kind of went through and cherry picked a few highlights. So let's take a look at them side by side and see how they compare. All right, starting with this bridge, the main shots, that is the shots taken with the main lens of this bridge, show some subtle differences. Particularly if you look in the sky, you can see how the 8 Pro kind of washes out the sky compared to what you see with the 9 Pro that adds a little bit more vividness, a little bit more color to it. Colors are on track with the 9 Pro. They just look a touch richer. And that actually makes a lot of sense because part of the Hasselblad partnership is all about color correction, color tuning particularly. Detail-wise, things look pretty similar between the two though. All right, this flower shot is pretty interesting to me. Using the wide camera lens, I got up close to this purple and yellow flower for these shots. The 8 Pro seems to give a little more detail inside the bud of the flower, though you can tell it's a bit brighter and it is kind of peaking in certain places. That's not ideal. The 9 Pro brings down those peaks in the center and we end up with more yellow. It's a little bit more vivid and rich, but in the process, it really kind of seems to lose some dimension to it. Feels like really neither camera got this shot particularly right. There's a lot of color there, so maybe that's why. All right, this gate or this fence, we've got the zoomed shot here, and this is good for complexity and detail comparing these shots against each other. Once again, the 8 Pro kind of has like a washed out quality, a bit less detail in the scratches that you see within the paint on the gate compared to what you see in the 9 Pro. Pulling out to the wide camera, I notice a bit more detail in the bricks behind the gating. Some of that shadowy area, it's just kind of more visible with the 9 Pro when compared to the 8 Pro. A little bit more definition back there. All right, here is a shot of a bird feeder hanging out and hiding in a tree. This was taken with the wide camera lenses. The 8 Pro brightens the grass that you see even more than it already is, and again, kind of washes out the color field. The 9 Pro, by comparison, brings back the richness of that green grass and helps the red pop out even more with this shot. I think what we're seeing time and time again is that Hasselblad color tuning in action. All right, it's time to bore you with a few selfies. Here I am. First, let's take a look at the front camera in portrait mode. Now, the 8 Pro has some edge issues that, that issue where you're trying to separate me from the background. And particularly if you look at my jawline, you can kind of see it's a rough etching there. Whereas the 9 Pro, on the other hand, did a fantastic job finding the proper edge. No real standout issues here. It even got my hair right, which is a big challenge. It's usually often what I see with these things failing. The 9 Pro got it. The 8 Pro wasn't able to do it so perfectly. Now, flipping the camera over to the rear camera, also in portrait mode, the 8 Pro has a nice natural look to it, though, again, some of my hair gets a little bit confusing to the system, it seems, but the background looks naturally blurred when compared to my face. The 9 Pro absolutely nails the edging around my face and my hair, which is really impressive, though to my eyes, the background detail seems a little bit too blurry by comparison, though I probably wouldn't have noticed this at all if I hadn't compared them side by side. Both did a solid job here. All right, now taking a look at some graffiti around town. Petaluma has some pretty awesome graffiti if you know where to look. Starting with the zoom shots, the OnePlus 8 Pro, as you can see, has a little bit of a haze to it that really takes away from the impact of the colors of this graffiti art. The 9 Pro zoom gives a very detailed, colorful, and rich shot by comparison. I love this shot. Now, coming out to the wide shot of this art, I can see a general smeariness again in the 8 Pro, not as detailed, not as defined. The 9 Pro looking sharp as ever. Definitely a win for the OnePlus 9 Pro. All right, and a little bit more graffiti. This time, this is actual Petaluma graffiti. It's right there in the art. It seems to work better this time with the 8 Pro than the 9 Pro. This is using the main camera lens on the rear. In this case, the 9 Pro seems to be the one washing out the colors, kind of flattening the saturation, which was kind of surprising, to be honest. The 8 Pro has a hint more red, which is a commonality I've noticed, a trait of the 8 Pro camera, a little bit leaning into reds at certain times. But in this shot, it actually helps to bring out the rows, bring out the bricks. What can I say? It works here. All right, I took a detour into a parking garage, and this parking garage, contrary to what it might look like right now, was actually pretty dark. And I took this with the main rear-facing camera. The 9 Pro definitely has a touch more processing just to bring up the dark levels in the concrete to a brighter state. By comparison, I'm actually pretty happy with either image here. Both make this shot look like it was really well lit. And if you don't want your dark shots to look like suddenly there's a bright light on, that might bum you out. But both of these shots look pretty great considering the low light that was in there. And speaking of low light, I went out into my backyard at night and turned on some not so bright accent lights along our house to provide just a hint of light. And again, this does not provide very much light in my backyard at all. It was pretty dark outside. On both phones, I used the Nightscape mode. Now, between the shots of the bushes in my yard and, a few of these selfies that I took with both the front and the rear cameras, it is undeniable how red-shifted the photos from the OnePlus 8 Pro are. You can't not see that, especially when compared to the 9 Pro. And like I mentioned earlier, a big part of the Hasselblad partnership had to do with that color tuning. So I'd say it shows, no question. In all cases here, the OnePlus 9 Pro blew the 8 Pro out of the water with these nighttime shots, no contest. And I was actually really happy with what I got out of the 9 Pro when it comes to low light performance using that Nightscape mode. And finally, I've added a few shots that just came from my week and a half of living with the OnePlus 9 Pro in daily use. And in general, I'd say my experience with the camera system was that it can absolutely take some really great pictures. However, I can't just simply trust that the images are going to turn out the way I think they are, the way that I can with a Pixel camera as one example, and even Samsung's cameras. I went back into my camera roll and expected some of these shots to be better than they ended up being. A little bit of motion blur here and In some cases, a stretching of heads when using the main lens, which is what you can see here with my wife and my daughter in front of a puzzle that they had just finished. You see that stretching. That was with the main lens and definitely not desirable. So the camera system is not bulletproof. It's not something that's always going to give you exactly what you think. You're going to have to do some setup first. So there's just a few of the photos that I pulled out from my photo walk. And again, I think by comparing the two systems together, I think you really do see the stark differences between what the Hasselblad camera and the color tuning in particular are doing with the OnePlus 9 Pro camera compared to the bumped up camera specs that we saw last year on the 8 Pro. Remember, with the 8 Pro, everybody was saying, man, this camera system is even better than it's ever been. I think we're a next step on that ladder with the 9 Pro, but oh man, we're just not quite there to say this is just like a Pixel camera as far as dependability is concerned. That's where I hope that OnePlus is getting. And the fact that OnePlus has a 3-year partnership with Hasselblad for their camera system gives me hope that they will continue to refine this partnership, continue to refine the hardware that's inside of this camera and this phone system, and really give us something increasingly more special next year, or even with the 9T when that happens. I'm really curious to see how that 3-year partnership will play out. This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by Casper. Here's a question for you. If you were in a relationship that wasn't supportive anymore, would you stick around or would you look for something better? Well, the same logic applies to your bed too. Many times we're stuck with a mattress or pillow or sheets for years without realizing that the support and comfort just isn't there anymore, but it's okay. It's never too late to reset your rest. Upgrade to Casper and get the great sleep you've been missing because honestly, you deserve better. So do I. That's why I love Casper. Say bye to your old bed and say hello to Casper. Only Casper mattresses are made with up to 86 supportive gel pods to align your spine and eliminate aches and pains. It's the supportive comfort that you need to wake up refreshed and ready to go. U.S. News and World Reports recently named Casper's Wave Hybrid the best overall mattress, and the Casper Original the best foam mattress. Casper Bed Frames, they're made from the highest quality materials, and that's to ensure that your frame stays looking like new even after years of use. The Haven bed frame is made with premium felted wool for a soft and sophisticated look. Did you know Casper also has bedroom accessories? From their soft sateen sheets, calming weighted blanket, even a dog bed for your best friend, your dog. Casper has something for everyone. We have a Casper mattress in every single room in our house. We love it. We actually just upgraded our oldest daughter to the Casper mattress a few months back, and she is sleeping better than she ever has. And so can you. As always, Casper offers free shipping and free returns with no contact delivery. It's time to break up with your old bed. It's time to move on to better sleep. Upgrade today by going to casper.com/twit1. Make sure and use that code TWIT1 for $100 off select mattresses. That's code TWIT1 for $100 off select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. See casper.com for more details. Thank you so much for watching my comparison of the OnePlus 8 Pro and 9 Pro camera systems here on Hands on Tech. You can check out all of my reviews on TWiT. Of course, all about Android. I talk about the OnePlus phones all the time, so check that out. Big thanks to Anthony Nielsen for editing this together and producing it. Appreciate all that you do, Anthony. We'll see you next time on Hands on Tech.
Keep up with all the hottest tech news and gadgets. Visit twit.tv. There you'll be able to find and subscribe to all our tech shows. Thanks for watching Hands on Tech.